This is just a regular little gummy bear, and I've decided to destroy it. To do this, I just have to get a vial, and I'll add a small amount of something called potassium chlorate. After that, I just have to heat it up until it all melts into a nice goop. At this point, it should be pretty good, and I can carefully drop in the poor little gummy bear. Almost immediately, the potassium chlorate started ripping it apart and oxidizing it to water and CO2 gas. Within just several seconds, though, the reaction's already done, and my little gummy bear no longer exists. This is just some regular peanut butter, and there's something I've always wanted to try doing with it. To do this, it's really simple, and I just have to scoop out a bunch of it and spread it on my dish. After that, I can turn off the lights, and now I can try shooting it with some UV light. If I then move it around, it leaves behind a little green trail, and this is actually the peanut butter glowing in the dark. It's supposed to work even better when it's cold, though, so I decided to freeze it with some liquid nitrogen. Now, when I blast it with the UV, it definitely works a lot better. But anyway, what's going on here is an effect called delayed fluorescence. This is happening because the peanut butter naturally contains chemicals that can absorb the UV light and re-emit it, and I think this is pretty cool. Here in Montreal, we've been finally getting some real summer weather, and I figured it was the perfect time to make some vodka popsicles. I don't drink, and I kind of hate the taste of alcohol, but I still thought it could be fun. The freezing point of 80 proof vodka is about -27 Celsius or -17 Fahrenheit, but my freezer can't go that low, so I have to use liquid nitrogen. It's taking longer than I thought it would, but it should eventually completely freeze. To get it out of the beaker, I just have to run it under some warm water. I now have a chunk of vodka on a stick, but it would be a horrible idea to lick it because it's way too cold. So instead, I'm just gonna try lighting it on fire. It's kind of sad though, because it's apparently too cold to do that too. Okay, so today, I've decided to dissolve my wiener in acid. I'm not just gonna be using any acid though, and I'm gonna be using something special called Piranha solution. It's a hot and angry mixture of sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide, and I basically just have to drop it in. It almost immediately turns black, and this is all carbon. Now, if I add some more peroxide, I can vaporize the carbon and turn it into CO2 gas. I think it's pretty obvious, but I'm still going to mention that this is extremely dangerous. If any of this splashed on me, it would do something very similar, which wouldn't be super pleasant. It eventually looked like there was barely any of it left, and it was just a sad little meat noodle. Then, over the next 30 seconds or so, it calmed down, and it was ready for another wiener. For a while now, I've been wanting to do something weird with an egg. All I'm gonna do is put it into a beaker and add some vinegar. Almost immediately, some bubbles start forming, and this is because the acetic acid in the vinegar is reacting with the calcium carbonate that's in the shell. It's slowly turning it into calcium acetate, which should dissolve into the water. This is going to take a while though, and I'll leave it here for a couple days. At this point, it looks like it has gotten bigger, and it's also yellow. I think it's ready, and I'll get rid of all the vinegar. Now, what I'm left with doesn't at all feel like an egg anymore. It's kind of just a firm, but squishy sack. It's only being held together by the soft membrane that's normally under the shell, and it's quite fragile.